Session 1, Introduction to the Dewey Color System. Vicki Boland-Witt, Creative Graphics and Art Director for the Walt Disney Company, Turner Publishing, and the Weekly Reader Corporation. She's also the illustrator and graphic designer for over 200 children's books. Vicki also does graphic design and is an illustration art professor.
We're going to talk today about the Dewey Color System, and we're going to learn about the color attributes that apply to a subliminal level of how you think and choose colors. So shades of lime green and purple connote artistic and innovative qualities. Color does have a mind of its own, and it's not what you think. Green doesn't equate to envy. Yellow doesn't connote cowardness. White doesn't stand for purity. And who says drab? Olive is drab. This presentation is based upon the world's first scientifically validated color test, the Dewey Color System. And we're going to show you how to understand which colors to use in order to communicate specific brand attributes for your client. The Dewey Color System is the world's only validated non-language career and personality evaluation. Published in the North American Journal of Psychology, Color and Personality by Dr. Reese Lang. And currently, it's the #1 career test on the web at careerbuilder.com, the Color Career Counselor, and it's expanding globally each and every day. So, Color U impact is psychological, physiological, not psychological. Color is a sensation. You feel it first. When you look at things, it evokes an emotion before you even process what it is you're looking at. And how do you choose color? So just stop and think for a moment just how you choose color. What is behind the decision making? Is it a mystery as to how you choose it, or is it because you just happen to have a particular personal preference towards a color, or is it something that you just saw or someone else had done before you? The importance of the color decisions that you make as a designer speak to the attributes of what you're trying to project. So I've got some examples here to show you of companies' brand attributes. So selecting colors should be about matching colors to what a company wants to project, what you're getting paid to do, not on guesswork or personal preference. Do you want to instill trust? Blue is that color, and look what we've got. Nokia, GE, and Ford. Companies' brand attributes speak without words. You want to convey high energy? There's Shell, red and yellow. How does one color convey insightfulness or inspire creativity? That's what you're going to learn about today. The subjective guessing game is over. You can now objectively select colors to promote a company's identity or brand attributes. This means when you're working and you put together a presentation for a client, the colors you choose are scientifically validated, so you can go to a client, present options, and it is based on scientific fact as the reasons why. So it also gives you a stronger power positioning in terms of projecting what you feel is the most appropriate color choices. It's not based on what you like and what you don't like, and what the client likes and doesn't like. Branding craves color. Look at Coca-Cola. It owns red, right? It's stable, dominant, and traditional. Someone says Big Blue and you think IBM. Blue reflects order, trust, and composure. Branding just craves color. This is Clear, a new wireless service that goes out throughout entire cities. They used a vibrant lime green tones, and that color speaks to innovation. Their tagline at the very bottom of this says, "New, fast, fresh way to connect with high-speed wireless internet at home or around town." That was a conscious decision that they made. What can brown do for you, huh? Right? It's a thing-oriented, grounded, and dependable color. That's what it says, That's what it speaks to, and that's what their logo communicates. And that's how important color is. And with the Dewey Color System, you'll be empowered to objectively select and scientifically substantiate your color decisions. So, color attributes enhance the opportunity for your message to be appropriately received. And your clients will respect your informed choice basis on proven evaluation responses and not just your gut instinct anymore. So here are some student examples that I have of logo designs. Cameron Scott created a logo for a visual accessibility company. He chose navy, mace, and leaf, and the reasons why he chose these colors are that navy blue conveys a sense of structure and stability. Paired with mace, the palette takes on a happier tone, and the leaf offers security and practicality. Here, Elena Dixon created a logo for the Atlanta Pet Rescue and Adoption. And she created this logo choosing sienna because it evokes a feeling of change. Another major animal activist organizations, such as the ASPCA, also chose a color from this category. But if you're presenting this to a client, you'd also give them some other options, right? So here she has a purple which evokes a feeling of warmth and comfort, if that's what the client wanted to project. Green and teal evoke a feeling of trust. So here the client could choose any of those colors, or they might even want to go back and forth a bit. This is a logo concept by Ace Outlaw, and he chose steel blue to give a sense of order and efficiency, and paired it with gold and tans to convey clarity of thought for sailing. Again, if he's presenting to a client, what he would do is give them some other options and stating, if you want to project a traditional sensibility in the marketplace, then he would recommend blues and browns. If you want to project a free thinking, if this were a more cutting edge sailing vessel, he would go with a color scheme of greens and purples or violet shades. And then a more open thinking at the bottom. So this is how you would use it in terms of graphic design. So imagine the possibilities. The Dewey Color System arms designers with a new language and approach to understanding and selecting color that you can substantiate with, oh my gosh, hard, cold facts, huh? And all of this does nothing but better your position and their position. You now have a place to sit and have a comfortable conversation with your client based on your knowledge and expertise. You start looking really good. Choosing a single color can be hard enough, but in creating an entire palette can be really overwhelming, daunting. Imagine we're just choosing 2 or 3 colors. When we get to websites, and later on in this presentation, you'll see how Nick has worked with palettes to make everything pull together using the Dewey Color System. So in order to understand this, we need to look at the Nina Dewey Color app to help you choose some of these colors, and the Dewey Color Coordinator. So this is a quote from Tom Wright, who'll be speaking during this presentation. And Tom said that I literally have had graphic designers embrace the coordinator with tears, especially the color language and the brown tone connections. Amazing. So Nina Paper and the Dewey Color System have joined together and empowered graphic designers in the print industry with a customized version of the coordinator that's on your iPhone. And you can go and look at these later on in the presentation. And this will allow you a digital application to pair up with choosing and working with the Dewey Color Coordinator. So if you want to pull together your client's year-end report image, what are you trying to project? If they are follow the rules, and that's what that year-end report message is, this would be the color palette that you would be working with. If you want to give a warm, comforting emotional effect to it. Maybe it's a piece for an Alzheimer's organization. Then you might work with this palette and shades within that. If you're looking for a stable banker-like conservative image, this would be a strong color palette. Wells Fargo has taken over Wachovia. It's interesting that those color palettes are right within that realm. And people-oriented problem solver, there you go. So, the Dewey Color System is a scientifically proven color decision-making process so that you can get the maximum work out of your students' work. So this is now speaking to the educational marketplace. When I'm teaching in the classroom, my students learn the Dewey Color System, and the samples you just saw made use of that to better leverage their ability in their portfolios and give them an edge when they're out there looking for work. They can sit down and say to a potential employer, I've made these color decisions based on this information. Now they're cutting edge. They now have the advantage over someone else sitting there presenting their portfolio. Correct? You like that one, huh? Yeah. And you're uniform. You're consistent in your color theory. It's not guesswork anymore. You might even be bringing something new into the organization. That's pretty powerful. And through this process, you're going to learn to identify color hues and undertones. So there is no application that it doesn't apply to. You can now instantly coordinate 25,000 color combinations with the Dewey Color System. You gain an in-depth knowledge of how to skillfully solve color dilemmas to reach your design goals. Again, we're not guesswork. And now I want to take a moment to introduce Dewey SATCA.
Session 2. How to use the Dewey Color Coordinator. Dewey SATCA sold one of the nation's largest staffing companies that he built to Randstad in 1996. His non-language and color preference career tests are now the world's most accurate, with over 60 million users, expanding worldwide. Dewey is regularly featured in USA Today, MSN, and AOL homepages, the Discovery Channel, CNN, the Wall Street Journal, and over 1,000 newspapers and national magazines. Dewey is also an author of a series of books and products through Random House, and over 8 international editions, and a bestseller in Japan.
Hello, I'm Dewey SATCA, and we're going to discuss, first off, how to use the Dewey Color Coordinator. And so each one of you has a coordinator, and you always start it by tearing out the pages. So we're going to show you how to do that. And you just get them and you fold them, and then you tear them. And then you keep tearing. So as you can see, it's being demonstrated right here. And you keep tearing. And what this is going to do is give you the capability to flip the book and make it work instantly. And so there's like 8 different tears for each section. And those are 8 flips inside the coordinator, which shows you how many pages we're going to be discussing. And after you fold them all, you can tear out 2 or 3 pages if you like at a time. And you keep tearing until you get to the beginning page. And in this case, since you started with lime green, it will be lime green. And you can see that in the coordinator, it says tear off on all the pages. Don't try to fold them back, because if you do, it's going to make the coordinator quite, shall we say, a lot of work. So it's much easier to tear them off. And then again, you can use these tear-off sheets to do all kinds of things. Maybe mark up a design for a client on a pay stub of suggested colors. And you can, you know how hard it is to print the best color. And this will help you actually show a better printed version of a specific shade. And all these colors can be identified in RGB, and also soon Pantone numbers inside the Nina app. as well as on our website. Okay, so now that we've torn out the coordinator, we're ready to go. So our goal here is to identify a color hue in 10 seconds. Think of how much time that's going to save you. So what is a color ID? Let's get specific here, and that's what we're going to get really quick here is a lot of depth. Some of this stuff you're going to say, why do I need to know this? Just hold on, because I can assure you everything you're going to learn today is going to maximize your use of color. So we have 12 hues, okay? Many of you already know that. But what hue is it specifically? Is it red, orange, or orange? This is amazing. Whether you're talking about the color attributes of a color or how to coordinate it. Chroma, color saturation. What is color saturation? It's the difference between Coca-Cola red and a pale pink. That's color saturation. They are the same hue. Is that a blue-gray or a brown-gray? And it also goes with all kinds of muted shades, of course, too. Value, dark versus light. And the Dewey Color System measures colors on a spectrum wheel. So that gives you the capability inside of the Nina apps to get a precision color match. But those are the three IDs. And it also gives, so they're hue, chroma, and value. And again, value gives you tone on tone. And everything in the coordinator is tone on tone. And that allows for a smoothness and a precision look that's really impossible to do any other way. So let's talk about the 12 hues. What are they? Many of you know them. Yes, they're the primaries, secondary, and tertiary colors. And they were plotted on a spectrum wheel. This is the Munsell, which is owned by X-Rite at the time, right now. And this was a Munsell color wheel. And I like to say hue goes round and round and value goes up and down. Let's give it a beat. Okay, this is the Munsell group to give you an idea of how we color coordinated the color IDs inside the system. As you can see, the value goes from dark to light, from a very dark purple to a bright purple to a lovely lavender, and yes, all the way to white. There are, for example, black tones. Like when people say black to me, I go, what shade of black? Is that a purple black or a teal black? Or if they say, what shade of white is it? Is that a purple white or is that a green white? Every shade has a white tone that looks like white and a black tone that looks like black. And does it make a difference? Well, yes. When it comes to color coordinating, oh my gosh, it makes a huge difference. So let's talk about color value. This is how you make things exciting. It's one of those automatic things, but it's nice to know what you're doing. You know, in the business world, what we do is we create processes that we can repeat over and over, and what that gives you is precision. And it also saves you time. Things that take forever to do become snap fast. And value is something that you are going to do to create high energy. So, do you want high energy or not? It creates that thought, and in that thought is a lot of power for you as a designer. And this is basically how the Pantone book works. We have one here because you can match each one of these colors to a Pantone shade. The top is high in value and light refract with a high light refraction, and the bottom is low in value. Okay, we're beginning to talk about how each one of these colors connect together. So before we start this really big discussion, and it's big, I want you to remember the word "and," because that's, I think, the reason why people get so confused about color is they just don't get "and." So first we're going to talk about the tones and how they blend, and then we'll pick up another "and." So let's go with these. And the coordinator does all this for you. We're going to start at the top of the book, and there you see the vibrant tones, and yes, they all blend together. Right underneath it are the white tones, and yes, they all blend together too. They're tone on tone. And here you see a lovely site for children done with white tones. And here you see the brown tones. And this is really unusual. The Coordinator is the only publication now, or iPhone application, that actually takes that big step into the brown tones. And what's in a name? We want to talk about this briefly because don't let names and colors confuse you. Don't rely on the name because, quite frankly, every hue has a different name in a different industry, and every region of the country is different. Fashion is different, design is different. So just throw out all your ideas about cornflower or whatever you call a color, and use the names in the Coordinator. They are the most commonly called names for each color, and therefore you have a new way to talk color, don't you? That's kind of cool. You can pick up the phone and say, I'm thinking about using mint green, and the person on the other end can go, well, maybe, but maybe we should flip over and go something a little more in depth, like olive green, or maybe we can go emerald. What do you think? You can actually talk color now. All colors are friends of their neighbors and the lovers of their opposites. So we're really getting in now to how to coordinate a color. Of course, this was done by Marc Chagall. And if there was anyone that ever loved color, it's Marc Chagall. So we're going to name the big color decisions. These are the lovers, right? So they're the background color, the primary design element, and the secondary design element. You'll see those as we move forward. And they're used for large visual objects. These are the things that create the maximum impact. So you pick these first, of course, and put in together any design. And again, the Coordinator has only lovers. Lovely thought, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to talk about how these lovers work inside the Nina app. First of all, subdue, then pop, then classical triadic, and then blend. Each one of these does different things. And you're going to hear about this more in detail. But just remember now that complements are subdue, split complements are pop, classic colors are triadic, and then we have blends, the four. Subdue, pop, classical, and blend. The iPhone does it all for you as well. The big color decisions are just a flip away in your Coordinator. Flip and 1 and 2 are the complements, and they subdue. You use these colors when you want to knock down a color, make a bright color look more inviting. The split complements create contrast. They pop. Wherever they touch, there's a line. The triadic is a traditional approach. You see them everywhere in classical elements or classical products or classical designs. And then we have color blends. Blurring a line can be powerful because it can make, of course, the background come forward. Here you see an example of a complement. imagine using one of these colors without the other. It would be a bit garish, wouldn't it? And by using the complement red-orange with teal here, what we've achieved is the bright colors become more inviting. And if we're talking what is a complement, let's quickly take a look. It's the color opposite the other on the color wheel, isn't it? And it subdues bright colors. And this does allow you to use a bolder palette. You know, if you're riding in New York, if you're driving in New York City or walking, you see all the buses. Almost every bus design has a split complement. Why is that? Because each one of them is screaming at you, isn't it? Trying to get your attention. And they want it to be, shall we say, grabbing your attention, but yet not be garish and in good taste. And so it makes things look better. Actually, it can make objects look better, look smaller, fit better within a smaller design space as well. And here you see split complements, green with red. And here you see it. Notice the gray background against the orange. This is flip 2, which is a neutral complement. As you can see, it really makes the color not so overwhelming. And here it is again as a neutral complement. It's one thing to see a car like this driving down the road, but to see it on an ad inside of a magazine or on a website would be quite, oh my God, what is that? And that's why they made it a complement. And what are we doing again here? We are objectively analyzing the color connection in order to coordinate it. And it allows us to move quickly and be much more effective. So now we're talking about the split complements. Distance of 5, or you might say 1 shade off the split complement. 1 shade off the complement, sorry. So there's going to be 2 of them, right? Because you're left side, right side. Here we go. So they're flip 3 and 4, either side of the complement. Most use combination in graphics. So when you look at a graphic ad, split complements are the most prevalent. And quite frankly, I don't think that's always good, because you really want to only use split complements to call attention. And you're going to start to see this as we go. The more sophisticated the magazine, the better use of color, the better, you know, when you use correct color, you look expensive. It looks like you paid a fortune. So now we're talking about value, aren't we? And that's exactly what we are going to show you, is how to create that outrageously great look quickly. But what you need to do is use split complements to emphasize or make a design pop forward. And they create dramatic contrast wherever they touch. Actually, I wrote an article for this Cosmo. And so split complements pop. So what's the split complement here? Of course, it's the name Cosmopolitan. That pink shade is actually a purple pink. And the opposite of purple is, of course, yellow. And so that's kind of a goldish shade, which is 1 shade off of purple. So it pops. You see where the lines touch, don't you? It's exciting. Okay, so we have a triadic combo here. And you'll start to see this in anything that's traditional, whether it be jewelry or you know, rugs. You start walking around and you go, triadic. Oh yeah, look at them. It's pretty boring over there, isn't it? But it's traditional, right? And it's expected. And so those are flip 5 and 6. The nice thing about this is there are 3 colors that are equidistant on the color wheel, so that gives you a lot of power. They create a classic traditional image even with bold colors. And the power, of course, is that you can use all 3 colors. And I see that a lot in design where they use triadics, all 3 of them, as a background color. And then they layer on top of the ad. It's quite a unique way of doing things. I only see it in real trendy magazines where designers are fairly evolved, quite frankly. And you'll start to see it too, and you go, oh yeah, that's cool. And because that really does create a great opportunity to pop layers and layers of color. So here we go. And here you see it, triadics in the most traditional setting. That's an indigo with red orange, and you can kind of feel the energy. It's in the background looks very indigo too. Of course it looks like white, but it's not. And it's used again in web design as background combinations. And here's just to kind of give you a feel for the graciousness and beauty of a triadic. It's got orange and green and purple, which are the relationship colors. And can't you feel this? How they all, you just want to connect with the space, don't you? And again, that's another great opportunity is you can use this system along with the color language, which makes everything like doubly powerful. You've got all these impacts hitting the way the colors connect and the color language as well. So flip number 8, which is the color blends. It's also called Blend inside the Nina app. You can make a design choppy. Like if you have a lot of items that you're trying to show or things like that in a design, then simply blend a color against the frame of the photos or whatever you can to make things blend better. And so there's all kinds of ways and things that you can do to use color blends to blur lines. And then you enhance the image with a color blend as well, because you present it, whatever you put on the top of it, it's like a platform, because color blends go back and it makes the image pop forward. And it's very subtle and organic and exciting in that it flows. And the nice thing about blurring lines is you can use, and we're about to see an example of this, I think it's really the cool use of it, is you can create oversized type or logos. And here's one right here, inviting large type. This was done in Departures magazine. See how they wrote Venice in black against indigo shade there? And it's a beautiful color blend, and it's still not tacky. It's kind of lovely. But if it was, of course, a split complement, it would be quite garish and obnoxious, wouldn't it? So we're going to use the word and here. So here we go with our first big and. And just remember that color families also blend together, especially in graphics. You can use all of these shades inside of each hue family to create additional color blends. And here is apricot in the white tones, but you can blend it against any of these colors and you'll find that the lines are blurred. Of course, lightness and darkness will show more line, but even still, it will be more blurred than what you might have expected. So here we have the lime green blends. And this just gives you another idea of how all of the color hue families fit together. Here's an article I wrote for Elle Canada and to talk about the meaning of each color. And as you can see, her camel belt flows beautifully with her lime green outfit. And it's a very unexpected combination, and it's exciting, isn't it? And neutral colors blend also. That's one of the things people, I think, and I mean everyone, that all the designers that I've met with, they always think when we talk color that we're talking bright colors. So you just remember that once your palette is already speaking, use neutrals. Don't create chat that's unnecessary on your design page. And use these neutral blends for that. They're the perfect background color to make a color look more exciting and to fit better on the page, especially if the design or the logo is larger. So here is apricot with desert, and together they blend lovely. And again, the coordinator does natural tone-on tones, and and so does the Nina app. And you use these neutral tone blends for the same reason as the other color blends. Consider them as a third coordinate in all kinds of designs, and experience the coordinator and each hue that goes with it. And then we have what we call the little color decisions. We're going to flip through these real fast because I just want you to know that they're not in the coordinator. They're analogous colors and dyad colors, a distance of 2, and tetrad colors, a distance of 3. And again, these are the friends and they're never the lovers. So you have to be very careful when you use these friends. You would never use them as a big color decision on your page. And why is that? Because guess what? Friends overstay their welcome, don't they? And so you can use them in a little, but if you use any of these in a lot, it's going to look low class. And you're going to ruin the excitement and energy that you're trying to give back to your audience. So we have friends, never lovers. And they work best as the secondary colors, and again, be careful you don't use them as big images, and they make powerful statements though. Analogous colors are great in that they're the color next to the color that's on your palette. So teal next to green, for example, is another and. It actually blends again, doesn't it? So it's and. We have 3 going now.
Could you explain when you say a distance of 1 or 2 or 3
Sure.
by showing me on the color wheel? It would go back maybe 1 slide.
Okay, sure.
And you have that?
Okay,
Right
absolutely.
there.
It's a distance of 1, right. Thank you.
You're
Yeah, there's blue next to teal and to indigo. And
So it's only 1 step away
1 step away.
from the main
Right,
color.
and so each color has 2 analogous colors. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so color hues next door. They're the next door neighbor, aren't they? Oh my gosh. And again, they create depth and texture because they are a natural color blend. And here's a beautiful shade of the ocean blending. And you can see how all the colors are coming in there. It goes from indigo to blue to teal, and then all shades of teal, then back to blue. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. It's nature at its finest. And dyads. The interesting thing about this, especially when you use it for smaller objects, is that you can actually create an imaginary color in the middle if you use it for lines and things like that. And that's really kind of cool, because you can create more interest and excitement without actually saying it. So it just creates a middle color. But it works especially well if you use it for lines. And it gives texture in the design, and it again provides a conservative image, and can work in a big color decision at times when used as a photo or a visual. I wouldn't recommend it. I try to get away from it though, because it's not going to give out energy. Unless if the photo is dominating the page, you can get away with it, but otherwise I wouldn't. But here you can see yellow and green is in the same color scheme here. And again, though, you notice the lover in this, even though it's used in a small amount. You know, of course it's red, but the energy where the red touches the lime green is overwhelming, isn't it? Because the rest of the photo blends. And it's just the nature of nature in that things all work together. And you can even see, though, that it did flow from one analogous color to create the dyad, which is a distance of 2. So let's kind of recap what a dyad is. It's a distance of 2 away from the color that you started with. Because now we're going to talk about the tetrads. This is where the conflict hits, and this is where people really drop the ball. I can tell you right now, I went into a fancy showroom in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I saw this tetrad of blue and lime green. And I spoke to the designer, the most expensive showroom ever. And I said, "You must really like blue and lime green." And he goes, "My 2 favorite colors." And I'm thinking to myself, yep, that's why you did this. It looked like J.C. Penney's on a bad day. It was so terrible. I mean, it just spoke that it didn't cost much. It made everything in the showroom look cheap. All hand done, outrageously beautiful couches and things looked plain out cheap. I've never seen such a faux pas in my entire life. But hey, there's a powerful place for tetrads, and we're going to speak to that real quick. So you, oops.
All the way to the right. To the right.
Oh, I went the wrong way. Sorry.
Okay.
So tetrads, they pop with conflict. You use them for logos, products are tight, but you still have to be careful where you use them because you have to have a smaller logo or whatever. You have to be very careful. Used in small amounts, they create emphasis and convey conflict. And conflict can be good. It might go with your theme. I mean, sure, if you want to talk about struggling conflict, I mean, if you take a look at punk rock, it's full of displays like this. They used one tetrad after another when they did their design. They really felt the conflict. And there's a place for that, of course. Blue and orange are tetrads of lime green, but not each other. So again, you have to be careful. Here you can see a tetrad. Notice where the lime green touches the orange. You can see the line. And in the photo, it works pretty good. Let me show you how ugly it can be, though. I mean, it can be so ugly. And, you know, I actually do see some of this on websites where people, you know, say, "I'm going wow with color." Well, yeah. You know, there's a word for that other than wow, but here we are, okay? Here you can see the effective use of a tetrad. You see the red heart right there on top of the blue background? Well, guess what? That's a tetrad, and you just can feel the shape of that heart. It just pops. I mean, I see it in a lot of logos. You know, and the logo will be so tasteful in the bottom right-hand corner and so classy, so small. And you flip that page and wow, it goes pop. You just see the logo. There it is, screaming at you. What a lovely way to market. Because people are thinking logically. They're going, wow, look at such, you know, their logo is so small, but I sure don't forget about them. Because it's got energy, doesn't it? Conflict creates memory. And that's kind of cool. So here we have the coordinator. It has a range of 100 plus RGB or Pantone colors. And each one of these colors do match inside the Pantone book as well. For each one of the For each color inside the coordinator, there's around 60 to 100 Pantone colors and more RGB shades.
Session 3, Introduction to Nina. Tom Wright, Senior Director of Design and Advertising for Nina Paper, the leading manufacturer of premium uncoated writing, text, and cover papers. He's also the nation's most renowned paper mill promotional speaker, giving thousands of presentations on the effective use of premium papers. Tom is also Nina's graphic industry's voice for over 25 years. Tom has also been named by Graphic Design USA on their Designers to Watch list.
I'd like to talk to you quickly about the Dewey slides that we have to kind of show you a little bit about the iPhone app. It's really an interesting process. The iPhone app itself, Dewey of course worked on it exclusively, making all the color combinations that we'd integrate into the app. We worked with partners out of New York City to actually design the look and the feel of the app. And then we integrated all the Nina paper products into this so that you could actually make selections of papers once you're working within the app. So as you see on the front screen, this is basically the way the app looks initially, and as you dive into it, it gets much richer with much more content. The second slide in the sequence here is for the ThinkInk website. What we did is we said, since we had the initial ThinkInk app out in the marketplace, it would be great if we could expand this so that on the website, as a designer is actually working at his particular space, his or her space, that they could actually come in and pull up this particular site and make paper selections, color selections, save those color palettes that they like, name those color palettes, etc., and then pull those color palettes into their work and actually drag ASD files in and have those colors actually in their palette of colors to be able to select from. Again, once they're into the site, you can go in and pull up initial paper colors that you may wish to look at, paper finishes, etc., and again order samples from that so you can build your actual comps. The next slide here kind of shows how we go about creating the color palettes. So you've gone in, you've selected a particular color. In this particular case, it's the orange, and here's the CMYK configuration for that color build. And then Dewey's system allows you to break down and look at 4 different attributes: subdued, pop, traditional, and blend. And those 4 different attributes give you 4 different feelings to those colors. And in fact, he defines what those colors are. So in this particular case, subdued happens to be attention-getting, grounded, high energy, etc. And it allows you to kind of get a feeling for whom would really enjoy this particular color palette and maybe respond to that color palette. Pop is a more dramatic color palette, a little bit more attention-getting overall, a little bit more concerned, more grounded. So through the way in which the Dewey system defines color and color meaning, it actually helps you kind of create the color palette and select a color palette that's right for the customer or the audience that you're trying to create your artwork towards. I'll show you one more slide just of the 2 different color palettes side by side. One happens to be the blend palette. The blend palette is very smooth and very undulating in terms of its look. And then you look to the subdued palette and you can see how it's muted back, how it's much more in the background and not quite as distinctive, but yet it's very truthful and very stable. And again, down the side, you'll see that you can actually see the RGB and CMYK for each one of the colors in the 4 steps of the color palette. Down below, you can actually click on the larger sections of color, and it'll pull up that color in a much larger screen for you to view and allow you to look at text as it overprints and surprints out of that color. Again, giving you a better idea of how the colors work.
ThinkInk from Nina Paper is a revolutionary new iPhone app that puts powerful design and color theory tools right in the palm of your hand. With ThinkInk, you can create custom color palettes using your iPhone's camera, explore color combinations created from the Dewey Color System, and order paper samples directly from Nina Paper, anytime, anywhere. Let's get started using ThinkInk. Tap the Add Palette button at the bottom of the screen to create a base color for your new palette. You can create your new palette based on a color, Dewey Color System attributes, Nina paper stock, or a photo. Let's create a new palette based on a photo. You can either take a photo using your iPhone's built-in camera or use a photo you already have stored on your iPhone or iPod Touch. let's use an existing photo. You can find the exact part of the picture you want to use with the multi-touch finger movements you're already familiar with. Now name your palette. And press Done. Now that you've created your palette, you can dig even deeper using the Dewey Color System, a scientifically validated tool that lets you explore the psychological meanings of hundreds of color combinations. Not sure what colors will appeal to a free-thinking, innovative client? Just pick a few attributes and thinking does the rest, automatically. Thinking generates 4 palettes: Subdue, Pop, Traditional, and Blend, based on the Dewey Color System. If you're not quite happy with your base color, just tap the Edit button to adjust it. When you choose a palette, you'll see the Dewey personality attributes displayed at the top, along with color swatches of different sizes and shapes. And if you scroll down, you can even view sample text. Now it's time to put your palette to work by instantly finding a Nina paper that coordinates. Tap the buttons at the top to toggle between List and Swatch View. There are plenty of papers to search through, so you can always tap the back button at any time to find more. ThinkInk also lets you order paper samples that match your color palettes right from your iPhone or iPod Touch. Once you've identified the paper sample you want, touch the shopping cart icon. You can choose multiple weights. After you've made your choices, your shopping cart symbol updates automatically. When you're done, tap My Cart at the bottom of the screen. Your samples are all saved here. To complete your order, tap Checkout and log into Nina Paper's secure site with your username and password. If you want, you can add a job reference as a reminder for yourself when your samples arrive. Select Checkout, and that's it. Nina and UPS do the rest. So that's a brief introduction to the ThinkInk app from Nina Paper. It's free, it's fun, and it will help you get better results by integrating color, ink, and paper from the very beginning of your next project. To learn more or to download the app, visit ninapaper.com/thinkink.
Session 4. Problem solving with color. Nick Valoom, founder and CEO of the Dev Department, well-known speaker and writer for web design. Nick has over 15 years of building websites for designers. His clients include Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, the Coca-Cola Company, and AT&T.
So what I do for a living is I help graphic designers build websites. So everything I do is based on a very strict process for building a website. It's very important that the designer and the developer adhere to this process on both sides of the fence in order to make sure that the product we produce is of high quality. It's a very similar concept to print design, where if you don't deliver the files in the correct format and you don't check your colors and you check your proofs before you send it to print, you're going to wind up paying on the back end to reprint your product. So process is very important in web design, and in particular, color is a process. Choosing color is a process. So good color in web design doesn't just happen by accident. It can happen by accident, but that's not a normal thing. So most of the time, good color is deliberate. Having a scientific way of proving that color is good and that color is the right decision is of paramount value to a web designer because of the fact that the barrier to entry in the web market is so low. For example, the cost of production in print is much higher. So as a result, the client scrutinizes much more closely as to who it is that they're hiring to produce their print piece, because they know that they're going to be paying a lot of money for printing. Whereas with web design, they can hire their cousin's brother's nephew to come in and do a website for them over the weekend. And they think, well, if it doesn't work out good, I can always go back and change it later, because it's very malleable in the world of web. But to be effective in web design, you've got to understand that you have about 5 seconds to deliver your message to a client. So when a website pops up, you can look at it, and if you can't turn your eyes away from it after 5 to 10 seconds and speak to the message that that website has, you're not doing your job correctly. So color is the key to delivering that message. So let's look at the ways to start the process on choosing color for a website. Obviously, you can start where you already have a color. That's the most common scenario. So for example, they have a logo, or there's a photo, or there's an illustration or something like that that they're using for choosing their color. Another way that we do it is that we go and we actually pick a shade. And surprisingly, that actually happens quite a bit in web design because designers are faced with clients who are starting from ground zero. So they say, I have no logo, I've got a company name, and why don't you just take my company's name and put it in a nice font and a color and throw it up there at the top of my website. And that's a very common scenario in web design. It's frustrating for designers, but it is there and you have to deal with it. So that's where picking a shade from the coordinator is invaluable, because you can start with something that relays the tone or the message that you're looking for and build on that. And then, of course, we can just go and start from scratch, which is sort of what I was alluding to with picking a tone. You choose what you're trying to convey. Are you trying to say that you're reliable or innovative or traditional or whatever? So what I'd like to do is take a look at some use of color in web. And we'll start with good, because I always like to start on a positive note. And then we'll look at some really bad. And then we'll look at some that were done maybe not quite right, but we've fixed them and we've made some suggestions. So the first example is already having a color. And these guys already had a color. And the color that they already had was in their logo. Now what they're using here is a red-orange color in their logo. So if we look in the coordinator at the red-oranges, we can see, there it is, red-orange. So they're looking in red-orange, and they're somewhere here, maybe in the, somewhere right up above sunset. They've got that sort of orangish color that's dominant in their logo. And their logo really jumps out, but they've got a really busy page. And what, like Dewey alluded to earlier in the presentation, he was talking about triadics, and he was talking about blending triadics. So really what they're doing here is they're blending indigo, red-orange, and lime green, which is a triadic combination. And these colors are all used in combination. And like Dewey was saying, you can use some very bold colors. For example, here they're using these red banners, which would normally be rather garish, and they would jump out and they would be overpowering. But in this case, because they've used colors, very deliberately used colors that are triadic and complement each other, they're able to combine a lot of stuff going on this page without overwhelming the user. And at the same time, the first thing your eye is drawn to is their logo. And it's pretty cool because that's a really small logo there. Another thing you'll notice is that they're repeating this color down here in the headers on the page. That's a way of drawing the user's attention to those headers without overpowering the user. So this is an excellent use of color, and although it looks like they probably started with an illustration, the reality is that that illustration was probably planned deliberately based on the color palette that they chose. So now let's go to the other extreme. Like I said, I like to look at the positive first. So this is really somebody who just went nuts with color, and their background is just a whole bunch of stuff. I don't even know how they came up with it, but the message is completely lost in this website. Really, I mean, what is their message? We don't know. If it were me, I would say that we're trying to draw the attention to these headings and get the attention of the user, draw their eye across the page. As we know, when a user looks at a web page, they go in an F pattern. So theoretically, they're going across and then down and out a little and down. Well, in this case, the user is very confused, so we call this color confusion. What they might have done with this page is they might have gone and made these pixels in the back out of a triadic color combination so that they could have a very busy background without losing the message in the front of the page. So looking at this one, we didn't even try and fix this one because it's sort of a lost cause. But A for effort on their behalf, because they probably spent a lot of time putting this together. Okay, so now let's look at one that we can fix. This is a case where the person who designed this is afraid of color. And they've spent a lot of time developing their navigation, and they've spent a lot of time getting their screen capture to look good here. But what they've not spent any time on is getting their messaging clear to the user. So what they've done is they've taken a color from their logo here, and then they've sort of just repeated that color throughout the website. And really what you're losing there is that your message doesn't pop. Your eye isn't trained to any one part of the page. So what we did in this case is we took this and we used a split complement, and we used sort of a magenta color, and we came up with a way of, it's actually a very dark purple, wouldn't you say? It's and we came up with a way of making their message pop. So when you look at this page, you'll see that the first thing your eye is trained to is the message. So the links we want them to click and the header images, those are all they're much clearer, they really stand out, but they still complement the page and they don't overpower it. So let's look back at the other one. So you can see how it's sort of washed here, and then when we implement this real basic color change, we're able to then go and bring that message out and really draw the eye to what we're after. So that's important because it's a simple change, and it's a matter of just not being afraid of color. And if you have the coordinator, you can actually overcome that fear that us non-designers have.
You know what else it does, Nick? It when the first slide has the green all over, it de-emphasizes the logo. And when you now add a different color, it draws more emphasis to the green.
Indeed, yeah. And you know, this is a good time to make a point of the fact that so many web designers spend so much time focusing on small details instead of their messaging, and that's something you don't do as much in print because it's all about the message. So let's look at another color problem. This one was really fun to work on. This is a financial firm, and this is not just an abusive color. This is just an all-out neglect of color. In this case, very little, obviously the color palette was somewhat chosen by the logo, and that's a palm green color in the logo there. But they're doing some really just stuff that doesn't work here. One is this image right here. The image is not, it's just dark, it doesn't communicate any message, so we did have to look at changing out the image. We also had to look at changing the color palette some because, you know, again, we're going back for colors that are, this firm wants to be innovative. They want to be a little bit traditional, but they also want to be free thinkers and coming up with new and fresh ideas because these guys are all about ideas and execution. So they want to relay that. Well, instead of just putting it in 24-point text on the page, they could actually use color to relay the message of being innovative. So what we did is we went, and first thing we did is we chose a new image, and we based it on a color palette, and we based it on a chartreuse color palette. So if we go back and look at this again, now we're actually pulling in colors that relay the message of being innovative, but we're still using this strawberry color down here and on the navigation, which actually is a more traditional sort of color. And that changes to this guy. We were able to kind of doctor it up and make it look a little bit better. And that's really what web design is all about. It's about form following function. It's about relaying a message. And it's really about paying attention to the detail on a page so that you can use color effectively to communicate to your users and to draw the eye, get them going where you want them to go.
Session 5, Using Color to Market Your Business. Shara M. Bell, founder and CEO of the Creative Know-Who, trusted consultant and advisor to the top-of-the-class designers and the companies that hire them. Respected as an innovator and visionary leader bridging design, creative problem-solving, and economic development.
Hello, I'm Shara Bell, founder and CEO of Creative Know-Who. And the part of the Dewey Color System that I love the most is this idea of relationships and how colors relate and how colors help us relate to one another. That color is no longer a subjective choice or about personal interpretations. That color can become objective and fact-based. I believe it gives us a formula for a way to use color as we relate to each other. The work that I do is around placing graphic designers, and I think color is a great way to subtly interact with people as they're considering you and why they should hire you. I believe that the person with the most competitive advantages in any situation is the one who wins, and and the innovative color combinations and using factual choices or factual basis on choosing colors can really create that opportunity. And then subconsciously you're interacting with people in a way that you just resonate with them, and they don't even know why they like you, they just know they like you.
That's true.
Dewey has a great quote that I love, and I think he said it earlier in the presentation to some degree, but the way I heard it the first time was, precision color combinations add value by creating a perception of sophistication that justifies any additional expense. We talk a lot in the design community about increasing the value of design, and I believe that this ability to do precision color is a way that design's value increases in a way that people don't, you sort of sneak it in. People don't even know why now they're willing to interact with you at a higher value. I believe that there's sort of three money-making color hot buttons. One is around trends, following what the color marketing group and other trends are saying, fashion are saying about color, and then building on that and using what we know about attributes and the personality and resonance aspects of color, and then how we combine color, and that if you can do those three things correctly, then when you're making presentations or you are creating your own self-identity, you can create a reception of color that just elevates the perception of your value. And this, going back to what I try to do with my part of the presentation, was to look at what has already been done in the rest of the presentation, and just to say these are the places where you can go back and apply it to yourself personally. And so using some of this about the scientific and subjective impact of color, and then applying it to what it is you want people to know about you, or what you now have learned about them that you can apply to how you communicate with them. So here we talk about the responsible colors, or the warm and giving colors, the stable conservative colors, or the sort of people-oriented problem-solving colors.
Sherry, can I ask a question
Sure.
then? So if I'm in a meeting with a group, clients and designers, and if I could assess their colors, then would that give me some information?
Sure, absolutely. So if you walk into a room and you notice the color choices people are making in their clothing or in their environment, in those first discovery meetings, then you can begin to understand something about their perceptions and their preferences, and then you can use that as discovery information for how you then do your follow-ups with them, and even going to their website prior to a meeting and seeing what colors you're looking at. In a sales situation, you're looking at what is the brand, and then what is who is the decision maker, and what are their personal preferences, because when you're selling to both, and so all of it is information that you take in that you can synthesize and then use in whatever you present back.
Thanks.
And that goes to this next slide, actually, where we talk about friends and lovers and this relational resonance. Using color choices in presentations create a really subconscious advantage. People don't even know in those situations why they're responding to you. In the sales process, you learn about mimicking on some level their cadence or their voice or the way their body language as a way to create resonance. And I believe you can do that with color as well, and choosing colors that people respond instinctively to. And it's subtle, and in the same way that you don't want to do it so that it is mimicry in your body language to where they notice it, you do the same thing with your color choices, and you weave it in such a subtle way that it doesn't hit them in the face, but it sort of makes them feel like you're the same, or that you have something in common. So, and then the other piece of this that's part of my even interaction with Dewey from the very beginning is in this career testing. as a recruiter, I've used this career test quite a bit for my clients, and I think for our industry in particular, there are some really nice opportunities around this nonverbal based test, in that I have a hard time getting candidates to take really long personality tests, and some of my clients that come from a more MBA focus will want their designers to take the same test their salespeople or their production people take. And what I've tried to shift a lot of my clients to is this color-based testing. And I think it's also helpful for the employee to do, because it gives you a very comprehensive understanding of who you are. When I was speaking to Tom Wright earlier, he mentioned that in a few minutes with Dewey on the airplane when they first met, that he learned more about himself than he ever learned from all the Myers-Briggs and whatever other testing he had done throughout his career. So, and I'm a big believer as well that the test is very accurate. And I've had candidates argue with me about the accuracy of it. And oftentimes the points they're arguing are the points that the test was making. And so, I think it's a great way. The other piece of it to me is in this idea of color as language. I believe that a design firm that adopts this sort of methodology of talking about color can then have a comprehensive way of talking about it in its sales process, in the way it's doing color for the clients, and then also in then how it's assessing the fit of candidates. And the really nice part of it for me, if you think about it in the sort of triadic or the resonance piece, and in musical notes I've often heard that sometimes if something's not in harmony, you can add a third note and it'll create harmony. And so if you can think of your hires in that way of if these are color preferences of this employee and this employee, what might be missing to create a diverse, harmonious work environment by adding a third person, and then it gives you another way to sort of assess who's going to be the best fit. I think we do hiring oftentimes the same way we do color, which is it feels right, or sort of on a gut or an instinct. And I believe in the same way that you, in shifting to a more scientific way of doing color, you can add that layer to the hiring process as well. So I believe that. So my theory is let color help you win.